I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers fade as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome to A Course in Miracles in Practice by the World Harmony Project. We're continuing our focused exploration of these final workbook lessons.
We really are getting near the end of this journey now, and you can feel the lessons becoming much more direct.
And today's is a perfect example of that clarity. We're focusing on Lesson 339. I will receive whatever I request.
It's such a simple statement, but it's also a completely unflinching mirror, isn't it?
It is. It forces us to connect our lived experience, especially any suffering or conflict, directly back to a request we've made in our own minds.
And the lesson's conclusion is that if we're in pain, it's because we've been confused about what we truly want. So it's pushing us to realign with our actual shared will.
It really transforms the world from this place that does things to you into a reflection of your own internal decisions.
Which means the key question for our whole exploration today is pretty fundamental.
Am I truly asking for what I think I am asking for? And as always, if you have comments or questions as we go through this, you can email us at ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org.
We're also on TikTok and YouTube at the World Harmony Project, and you can always leave comments right on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Okay, so let's start by just centering on the text itself. Let's hear the full lesson and its prayer for today.
Lesson 339, I will receive whatever I request.
No one desires pain, but he can think that pain is pleasure. No one would avoid his happiness, but he can think that joy is painful, threatening, and dangerous.
Everyone will receive what he requests, but he can be confused indeed about the things he wants, the state he would attain.
What can he then request that he would want when he receives it? He has asked for what will frighten him and bring him suffering.
Let us resolve today to ask for what we really want, and only this, that we may spend this day in fearlessness without confusing pain with joy or fear with love.
And the prayer.
Father, this is your day. It is a day in which I would do nothing by myself but hear your voice in everything I do, requesting only what you offer me, accepting only thoughts you share with me.
That introduction just immediately puts you in this deeply paradoxical space.
It does. We're told very simply that we get exactly what we ask for. But our day-to-day experience is often the complete opposite of what we consciously say we want.
Right. We all say, I want peace, I want to be happy. But what we get is conflict, stress, anxiety.
And the lesson insists that those two things are linked. The outcome is linked to the request, but it's all happening because of a deep confusion.
It's an uncompromising diagnosis. It's saying if suffering is here, the request for it must have also been here, just operating below our conscious radar. I think we have to spend some real time on that idea, because it sounds absurd on the surface. How can anyone possibly think pain is a good thing, or that joy is something to be afraid of?
Well, the confusion is rooted in the whole thought system of separation. If you choose to identify as a separate, fragile self, as an ego, that identity needs constant proof that it exists.
And what proves you exist as a separate self better than being under attack, or being misunderstood, or treated unfairly?
Exactly. And that's where the toxic reward system comes in.
Yeah.
That momentary feeling of, say, self-righteous anger, that little jolt you get from feeling right in a grievance.
That flash of, I know who the bad guy is here, and it's not me.
Yes, that feeling is misinterpreted as strength, or even as a kind of pleasure.
So the ego trades the quiet, lasting state of joy for that intense but very fleeting state of being self-justified.
And the cost is fear and isolation. The mind is essentially buying a package deal.
A little bit of anxiety, some chronic frustration, constant vigilance, all is a small price to pay for the feeling of being a unique, separate identity.
The moment you indulge a grievance, you're placing an order for more separation. And the experience of separation is fear. So the suffering you get is the fulfillment of that fearful request.
Let's analyze the split mind in action here.
Okay, so there's our true will. The part of our mind we share with God, it only wants one thing, the perfect, eternal peace of God. It's simple, it's quiet.
But then there are the fearful thoughts,
Yeah.
the ego. And that voice is loud, it's persuasive, it's insistent.
And it's constantly making requests, not for peace, but for things that will secure its identity as a separate, victimized self.
Look at the difference in those requests. The true will has one request: love.
The mind is making contradictory requests all day long.
I request safety. I request control over this situation. I request proof that I'm better than that person.
And the hidden function behind every single one of those little requests is the same.
To validate the reality of separation and struggle.
Right. You might think you're asking for safety, but the deeper fear-based request is for limits because those prove that the separate self exists and needs to be defended.
So the suffering we experience isn't a punishment. It's just the necessary reflection of that constant request for separation.
If the universe gave you peace when you asked for separation, the ego's whole foundation would crumble. Because separation, by definition, is conflict. To receive one is to receive the other.
The lesson is uncompromising because it just strips away every possible alibi for our internal state.
It does. If you feel fear, it's because you requested a scenario that delivers fear. If you feel pain, you requested a scenario that delivers pain.
The request might seem to be for something external, like, I want recognition at work.
But the underlying fearful request is something more like, I request confirmation that I am a distinct, separate individual and therefore easily threatened by the success of others.
And that deeper request is the one that always gets fulfilled.
The core change this lesson is asking for is a shift from seeing ourselves as passive receivers of whatever the world throws at us,
To being active requesters who are in complete control of the meaning of what happens. We're not victims of circumstance. We are the decision makers for our own experience.
That is the essential shift to an internal locus of control. We stop believing external problems dictate our state, and we accept that our internal thought system and its requests are what define our experience.
Which means the power to change our experience is always right here, right now. It's always in the mind, no matter what the world looks like.
Let's make this really concrete. Imagine a situation, say, a casual acquaintance receives some kind of prestigious award or a promotion, something you felt deep down should have been yours.
Okay, and you feel that sharp physical pang of jealousy. Or maybe just resentment.
Right. The award itself is the external form. It's a neutral event, a shape in the world.
But the fearful thought system immediately assigns it a function. The function becomes injustice or rejection or proof that I'm not good enough.
And that active interpretation of seeing their success as a threat to your status, that is the request for conflict.
The interpretation is the request. That's a huge point. The neutral event gets filtered through the ego, which immediately demands a conflict to maintain its identity as either superior or, in this case, wronged. And here we see the height of the confusion between pain and pleasure.
Exactly. If I indulge that jealousy, I get the confused pleasure of feeling morally superior. I feel justified in being disappointed with the system or the person who got the award.
It's that small, toxic hit of satisfaction you get from judgment. That's the ego's reward for defending its territory.
But the lesson shows us the true price of that feeling. It is pain. It forces you into separation. It means isolating yourself in grievance, cutting yourself off from any possibility of shared joy.
So the true choice is between indulging that grievance, which feels powerful for a second,
And choosing the actual joy of peace right now, even if the external form, the award, went to someone else. The request for peace means choosing to see the award as a neutral event or even something to celebrate.
This shift is so profound because the ego's resistance to it is absolute.
This challenges the ego's one and only job, maintaining the separate me. The ego needs to interpret the award as a threat because it needs a me that can be rejected or overlooked.
It needs us to believe that danger is always external, that unfairness, inequality, betrayal, that these are the real sources of our misery.
Because as long as the danger is out there, the ego remains necessary as our defense system, our protector.
But if we accept the lesson's premise, we have to accept that the danger is entirely internal. It's only in our own request for conflict.
And the moment you admit that, the ego's whole defense mechanism becomes totally useless.
This leads to a very, very difficult mental admission.
It does. When you feel wronged, when you're clinging to that justified sense of being slighted, that feeling is incredibly potent. It's addictive.
To accept that I receive whatever I request means I have to be willing to admit that I requested the very fear and pain I'm feeling right now.
And that admission is the pivotal moment of correction. The refusal to make that admission is the ego's last stand.
Because if I admit I requested the pain, I lose my most treasured complaint. The sacred story of it's their fault I'm miserable.
The whole strategy of projecting guilt outward just collapses. The victim identity dissolves.
Losing that grievance narrative is the ultimate surrender to peace. The admission that I asked for the pain is the one step that opens the door to asking for something else.
And this takes us directly into how this lesson redefines forgiveness. Forgiveness becomes correction.
Right. We often think of forgiveness as this sort of reluctant act of letting someone else off the hook for something they did.
But here, it's a reevaluation of what we are internally demanding from the world.
Forgiveness, in this context, is simply the correction of the request itself.
It's the moment we stop asking for fear, which is always a request for separation, and we consciously turn toward love, which is a request for unity.
And because that choice happens entirely in the mind, the solution is always available right now.
Let's use another really simple everyday example, like the housemate and the chore.
Okay. You feel that surge of irritation when your housemate has, once again, ignored a chore they promised to do. The dishes are in the sink, the trash is overflowing.
The external form is just the undone chore. But the fearful request lodged in my mind isn't really about cleanliness.
It's I request complete, predictable control over my environment, and I demand that other people's behavior conform precisely to my standards.
And the pain you receive, that intense frustration, the resentment, is the exact fulfillment of that request for control. The frustration is the system telling you that your separate self is being challenged.
So forgiveness, or correction, in that moment, is the immediate internal choice to see it differently.
It's the choice for the truth, which is, my peace doesn't depend on those dishes being done. I can choose to be perfectly at peace right now, regardless of their actions.
And that choice is the new request. It overrides the old, fear-based demand for control.
The real cost we pay is our deep, deep investment in being right about our personal grievance stories.
That investment in being right is the clearest possible example of confusing pain with pleasure. We value the proof of our integrity or our moral superiority more than the actual feeling of peace.
Let's think about a trivial argument. Say, an online debate about some historical fact where the stakes are zero.
The need to win that argument isn't about factual accuracy. The fearful request is for validation of my intellectual identity as separate and superior.
And the consequence of insisting I'm right is the anxiety and anger that have to come with defending my position. I receive the effects of that mistaken request. Agitation, restlessness, a loss of connection.
And the lesson asks, is the temporary toxic feeling of being right worth the permanent cost of my peace?
When you see the cost clearly, the answer is always no. But the ego tells you that being right is invaluable.
When the truth is that peace is invaluable. Insisting on winning is insisting on separation, and the price for separation is always anxiety.
Every single grievance we hold is a narrative, a story. And it's a story built on the belief that someone has to carry the guilt for my discomfort.
The story needs a villain and a victim, and we always cast ourselves as the victim.
But if I choose the true function of my relationships to see the other person's innocence, our shared reality, then my entire narrative of being wronged just falls apart.
You're trading the form, the specific story of who did what for the function, which is the immediate experience of peace. Accepting the truth of this lesson really does change the whole atmosphere of the mind.
It creates this deep psychological safety because you identified that the origin of all conflict is internal, and therefore it's entirely subject to your immediate change of mind.
And that's the source of real fearlessness. When the prayer says, requesting only what you offer me, It's inviting us into a state that is, by its very nature, free of conflict.
Genuine fearlessness comes from recognizing that nothing external, no event, no person, no circumstance can take away your peace.
The world can bring you all sorts of forms, financial problems, illness, rejection. But those forms can't impose suffering on their own.
Suffering only happens when we interpret those forms through fear, when we use them as an excuse to request pain internally.
So if I choose to stop requesting things that are inherently of the world-like external control or validation, I also choose to stop requesting the pain of loss and disappointment.
Because the world of form guarantees loss and disappointment, everything changes, everything disappears. By rooting my requests outside that world, I secure an outcome peace that can't be taken away.
This cultivates such a crucial clarity in the mind. You are choosing to stop listening to that loud, chaotic voice of the fearful thought system.
That voice is so complex, it has 1,000 reasons why you should be anxious right now.
But the true will is simple. It's non-argumentative. It just says, I want peace and I choose love. You just turn toward that simple knowledge.
And that clarity makes actions so much simpler. Your actions start to flow from an internal certainty, not from external anxiety or fear of punishment.
The lesson gives us some very specific invitations, doesn't it?
First, it invites us to stop making our choices alone.
Which means stop operating from that separate private will that's fueled by fear. That private will always chooses conflict because conflict is what defines its boundaries.
Second, stop confusing pain with joy. And this means becoming really aware of when we're indulging in that strange, toxic satisfaction of being a victim.
We have to see that little moment of gratification not as a reward, but as the very pain it truly is.
Third, we're invited to stop confusing fear with love. This really means we stop cherishing our grievances.
We treat them like valuable assets we have to protect.
When in reality, they're the chains that bind us to our confusion. To stop cherishing them is to choose love, which needs no defense at all.
And finally, we're invited to stop being confused about what we want.
Which means choosing to stop listening to the ego's endless, tiny demands. I need this approval. I must have that money. I have to be right about this.
And recognize all of them as just poor substitutes for the one thing we actually want, the unified peace of God.
And this brings us right back to the heart of the lesson. We receive whatever we request. The staggering but also incredibly empowering realization is that the only thing standing between us and perfect joy is the request we are currently making.
And the solution is available the very instant we choose to change that request.
Lesson 339 shows us that when we feel fear or pain, it's because we've been fundamentally confused about what we've been asking for.
And by declaring, I will receive whatever I request, we're taking back total responsibility. We are the sole decision maker for our inner state. It strips away that illusion that external forces can make us suffer.
So the practice today is very active. It's to pause in the moment of conflict and acknowledge the fear-based request you've just made for separation, for control, for being right.
And then consciously, deliberately exchange it for the shared will of love. And that exchange instantly brings an atmosphere of fearlessness and clarity.
So as you move through your day, we encourage you to notice those moments where you might be confusing the pain of being right with the simple, immediate joy of being completely free.
And resolve to ask only for what you truly want, peace.
We wish you a day filled with that simple, shared peace. Until next time.
Join us tomorrow as we continue this exploration with Lesson 340.